Well, we're going to call that wolf the internet startup. The wolf's name is Internet Startup. That's an interesting name for a wolf, don't you think? So Little Red Riding Hood, out on her journey, runs into this wolf named Internet Startup, and Internet Startup tells her that he's going to eat her up and take everything that she has and not allow her to get to that comforting place at grandmother's house at the end. And every time she runs a little bit farther away, he catches up, and he runs a little bit farther away and she catches up. And this happens over and over and over again until she finally turns around and cuts off the head of Internet Startup Wolf. And then she's able to continue to grandmother's house without any more impediments. All right, that's a ridiculous little parable, but that is the way I'm feeling about the internet startup world. As I read yet another blog today about someone talking about being unemployable. And I know that there have been a particular few very famous blogs where people have said I'm unemployable, so I have to be an entrepreneur. And we've created this myth of the entrepreneur as a person who's like bigger than life. And what I want to propose to you today is that maybe that myth is complete bullshit. Now, I'm not the first one to say that. There's a book out there from the 70s called The E-Myth, but it is really different when you look at the particular thing that we call an internet startup. It's this idea that you can make money really fast online, or this idea that you just couldn't possibly work for somebody else because you're unemployable. And what I want to present to people who are saying that is to stop and think, if maybe you're not unemployable, maybe you're just an asshole. And I know that might be a hard thing to internalize, but if you really can't work for someone else, it usually means that you can't work with other people. Because being a great employee, you have to have what we consider entrepreneurial traits to be a great employee. And one of those traits is that you have to be able to lead and compromise, not just be in charge. So maybe if you're unemployable, it's just because you're an asshole. And I know that's really hard to take in, but here's what I've found and what I want you to replace this idea of entrepreneur with, because I really do think that this word needs to die. And full disclosure, I am one of the people who has overused this word. So I've got to turn back and look at myself about overusing this word. But what I've been thinking about more and more lately is it's not really about the startup. Although those are cool if that's what you are doing. It's not really about the tech company. Although those are cool if you can get one of those jobs or start one of those companies. What it really is about is being mission driven. When we talk to people about doing something you love and following your purpose and creating schedules that work with your life and things like that, we need to stop acting like the only way that you can do that is to start a company. Although that's a really great thing to do, it's also really fucking hard. As someone who's done it twice, I can tell you it's really fucking hard. And so I want you to think about whether or not what you really want to do is be an entrepreneur, or whether it is that what you really want is to be mission driven. If there's something in your heart or something that you know you do better and you can give to the world that no one else can give to the world, you need to be giving that to the world in whatever way, shape, or form works best for you. And it may not be as a leader of a company. And this idea that the most innovative people, that the most successful people, that the people who have the most to give have to have that big E entrepreneur word is total BS. In fact, I've found sometimes the opposite is true. Oftentimes, what we call big E entrepreneurs, leaders of organizations, they're often the least innovative by the time they really hit what that big E word actually means. They're often the least able to work with other people, and they're often the least able to create that change that we really are all just hungering for right now. So I think owning a business is awesome, obviously. I think setting your own hours is awesome, obviously. But I also think getting lost in this myth that that's the only way for you to have a big impact on the world, or that that's the only way for you to have the life that you want, is BS. So I'd like to retire the entrepreneur word. I'd like you to slay that particular dragon and come up with something else for yourself. Instead of thinking about, I have to start a company, instead of thinking about, I have to come up with the next big thing, instead of thinking about, I need to be the next Gary Vaynerchuk or Marie Forleo or whatever. What is it that makes you mission driven? What is the thing that you have that when people come to you and they ask you to do things for them, when they come to you and they ask you for advice, when they come to you and they ask for your expertise, what is that thing? Because there's probably a pattern that has happened over and over and over and over again. And take that thing and really ask yourself, do I need to lead a company, or am I better at contributing to a company? Because not every one of us is designed to lead that company. Not every one of us is designed to create the next Facebook, or to create the next Sevenly, or lead a huge digital marketing firm, or whatever. Sometimes the most important thing that we can do is be the support person behind that person. Or sometimes the most important thing that we can do is take the stable job so that we can be home in the afternoons to take care of our children, who might be the next Mark Zuckerberg or the next President Obama or the whatever. So I want us to kill that idea that seems to have just exploded in the last few years of the internet entrepreneur as the gold standard for the world changers. And I'm going to take it back to something that I read from Dale Partridge recently, who, we disagree on a lot of the way the world works, but when it comes to entrepreneurship and taking care of your family, man, he is very special. And what he says that I really want you to think about is family first, family first, family first. And oftentimes, what we sacrifice on the altar of entrepreneurship is the stability of our family. So don't let that happen to you. Don't sacrifice the stability of your kids or your partnership or whatever on this idea of the startup, please. All right, so what I want you to do today is drop the word entrepreneur and pick up the words mission driven. Because I do think that we have too many people living in this world that are not lit up. I do think that working 40 hours a week at a job that you hate is a tragedy, and working 80 hours at a job you hate is like suicide. But I do want you to realize that entrepreneurship won't save you. It didn't save me. It doesn't save any of these experts. If you ever listen to them talk about their lives and about what they've had to do to have the life that they want, it's not about the business, all right? And you don't want to be Steve Jobs. As amazing as he was, as big of a genius as he was, he sacrificed his family for that genius. And you don't want to be that person, right? Probably not if you're here watching me. So let's drop the entrepreneurship word together and instead think mission driven. And what looks like a mission driven life to me is that sometimes I'm self-employed, sometimes I'm working on a business, and sometimes I'm working for somebody else or working with somebody else to achieve their dream. Because my entire goal in life is to lift women in my community up. And whether I'm doing that working on my own or working for somebody else doesn't really matter to me in the long run, as long as I am mission driven. Where I quit is when I realize that I've stepped away from that mission for a paycheck. But as long as you're on that mission, for me, that's lifting the women in my community up. As long as I'm on that mission, it doesn't matter if it's my business or somebody else's, if I'm giving my best skills to that mission. And I want you to think about that too. Are you really on mission, or are you really just trying to live the myth of the entrepreneur? I'm Rena with BeARealBeauty.com. Have an awesome weekend, everybody. It's beautiful here in Florida, and I will see you from the garden tomorrow. Bye-bye.